Aiming up YouTube, welcome back to a new video with Rams fan YT. Bit of an early one today, you could argue, but it will also probably be quite a long video. Last time I did this last year, took about an hour and a half to get through every single one. Because today I will be reacting to every single one of my predictions I made at the beginning of the season. All the way down from National League North, all the way up to the Premier League. I don't even know if I managed to get 10 right of these. I'm going to say that I think, near enough if I'm 3 points either way, a win away from that position. I would probably count that as an all right sort of benchmark. I'd say, yeah, got that pretty spot on. I will obviously have ones which I got exactly spot on, which is probably about 10, maybe slightly less. But let's get straight into it. I had at 22nd Alfreton Town. I got that incredibly wrong, really. They were in bad form at the end of last season, but it's just completely different now, isn't it? They did just miss out on the playoffs. They were 9th at 61 points, nowhere near relegation after all. Much better than any of the other teams anywhere near relegation. Double points pretty much as the other ones. 21st had Spennymoor Town. I needed not to be worried about the management and captaincy, really. I mean, did they challenge for the playoffs this year as you normally do? Yes, they finished 10th, only 3 points away from the playoffs ultimately. So I do believe that is another horrendous prediction. 20th, I went with Leamington. Well, they were 15th, so that wasn't as bad, that one. The main thing was the small size of the squad, but because I was doing it so early on in the season, I didn't know the full extent of the squad, which is obviously the problem with doing all these predictions in a logical order week after week. The squad builds over time and you don't know who's going to be better on earth. And we'll see later on why that's really come back and ruined most of this video predictions. 19th of Gateshead, and they obviously won the league. Congratulations to them. Miles off there. I didn't really think player management would work. I did think there was some good players, though. Just, I thought they were going to leave. And so I did qualify that, saying it's either going to go one of two ways. It was either going to succeed or it was going to fail, and it turns out it succeeded. So it's kind of the opposite of what I was predicting was going to happen. 18th went with Darlington. They actually finished 13th in the end, a bit of a way off the playoffs. They could have potentially had a bit of a push towards the end, but no, they sort of stagnated into mid-table. Really, this prediction is a bit of a way off. It's not horrendous. They're both positions are in mid-table ultimately, although they would have been more challenging towards relegation if this was the issue. But obviously only got one team got relegated this year because of a restructuring of the league. I know that the manager was clearly much better than I actually previously thought, so bear that in mind for the next prediction of them in the National League. Not the National League, sorry, National League North, rather. Hereford, I put as 17th, and Hereford were actually 12th. So, again, about 10 points off it. I don't really know much about Hereford coming into this. There was some players I knew, some players I didn't. And previously, Hereford had been around the 16th, 17th place mark. So they have improved this season. 16th went with Guiseley, and they were ultimately the team which got relegated. So this was based on where they probably should have finished last season if it wasn't curtailed. Although I did say that the joint management would work, and it did turn out to be true, didn't it? So, and I did also say there were some very poor players in there, and maybe I should have gone further and said, well, yeah, they're so poor, they're going to be relegated, but 15th went with Blythe Spartans. In the end, they finished 19th. Not too fussed about this one. Only 5 points, I think it was, in the end. I do still fear for them going into the future. The defence was not the best department in the squad. I think we can quite clearly qualify that, can't we? I think they had a goal difference of minus 35 and conceded 76 goals, which is the second worst in the entire league behind Farsley Celtic. Even relegated Guiseley did better than that. So I was correct with that prediction. 14th, Telford United. Well, they finished 20th. I mean, they weren't great this season. They normally are a mid-table side. And so I think I did say that the squad size was dangerously low, and if they had an injury crisis, I don't know if they actually did, but it clearly has affected them. They're quite a distance between 20th and 19th this season. There was only really 3 candidates for relegation. 19th and 20th had a gap of 6 points. So, yeah. 13th went with York City. Well, they've won the playoffs. So congratulations to them. I did think that they had a weaker squad than they actually had. They only had 15 players at the time I made the video. But I did also think the management was not that good. I clearly got that wrong. So apologies to the Ministermen. That was not really a correct prediction at all. 12th got Curzon Ashton. They actually finished 14th. They were only 3 points away from that position in the end. I don't think that was too bad. It's a bit unpredictable when you have mid-table teams. I did say they had a good striker. I just didn't think they were good enough to get to promotion. And that's proved to be true. 11th, Farsley Celtic. No idea why I said this. They finished 21st. Mainly because Farsley Celtic historically have challenged for the playoffs and finished 11th for the last few seasons. So I'm really a bit lost for words about if you are a Farsley fan, tell me why it has been so bad this season. Why have you fallen off a cliff so badly? 10th, I went with Chorley. They actually finished 6th. 5 points difference, although it is the playoffs they got instead of actually being 10th. I did think they'd challenge for the playoffs, and I thought they were only going to be 4 points off. It turns out we were 4 points in. So, really, it was kind of a flip of a coin, wasn't it? If they were to get to the playoffs or not. It's all down to certain games of the season, really, and they did better this season than I thought they would. 9th, I went with Kettering, and Kettering actually finished in 8th. I mean, I've got to accept that one. They only didn't finish 9th on goal difference. That was how close it was for me to being correct there. I mean, everything I've pretty much said is correct. Well, I knew they wouldn't be in a relegation scrap, and I knew they were going to be challenging for the playoffs, and they have been. Correct. Moving on. AFC Fylde. I said they're going to be 8th. They were actually 3rd. They did do quite a lot better this year than I thought they would do. It's because they got they buy all these good players, don't they? So but they didn't actually get promoted this season. But I thought they weren't actually going to make the playoffs, and that proved to be ultimately very, very wrong. 7th for St Kidderminster Harriers, and actually finished 4th. So it was both in the playoffs, but there is quite a gap between 7th and 4th this season, really. 11 points between the gap there. So I did say they'll reach the semi-finals. Well, I don't think they even got that far, to be honest. 6th, I went with Boston United, and they were actually 7th. There was 2 points difference here. It's pretty much the same place. Both entered into the quarterfinals of the playoffs. I said they'd get knocked out in the quarterfinals, but I later did actually say they'd do better in the playoff predictions. So I did well in that. I've done well in that. I might react to it, might not. But ultimately, I'll take that. I think that's a good, solid prediction. 5th, Bradford Park Avenue actually finished 18th. What was I thinking? They're never up towards the promotion challenges. They're always down relegation things. So I really don't know what I was thinking. I also said they were going to get promoted via the playoffs. So clearly very wrong with that one. 4th, I went with Brackley Town. We've actually finished 2nd in the end, quite a bit higher than 4th in terms of points total, with 13 more points. But the playoffs, I did say they were going to reach the playoffs. They've just done much better. They did improve their thin squad, but they did reach the playoffs. So well done, Brackley. 3rd, Chester. Chester, you've let me down. You finished 16th. And I don't know really why this happened. I don't know why I went from being 3rd. Probably just I thought I saw signs that they were going in the right direction, but they're not, clearly. 2nd, I went with Gloucester. They finished 17th. That was a bit of a howl of a prediction, really. They did actually look at one point set to win the league. They really did. At the beginning of the season, I think a lot of people were having them as slight underdogs. Paul Groves as a manager, it was pointing to the playoffs, but no, it really wasn't in the end. 1st, Southport, we actually finished 11th, so again, not really a right call. I thought I was really basing this more on history, really. I was worried about the goalkeeping department, and I think that was probably. I don't know if that was the biggest issue. It certainly could have been an issue. I've not watched much of this league this season, so they could have had a howlers in goal, but I don't really know. National League South. This one was mildly better, I'd have to say. Maybe I should just focus on the Southern England teams instead. No, because that will be the league which will get really badly wrong next, because I've got the National League really badly wrong this season. 21st, I went with Dulwich Hamlet. I mean, they finished 10th, so not much better start, is it? Well, I did think that the injury would come to the goalkeeper, and I don't think that has been the case. So, I mean, I did qualify that really as saying, yeah, injuries. Well, we didn't have injuries today. Well, I think they might have had some, but not many. St Albans City, I went 20th and they actually finished 9th. Again, a bit of a howl of prediction. I personally thought Ian Allison was past it. And I did actually say it was a bit of a mad prediction, and it turns out very much was a mad prediction. 19th went with Welling United and finished 20th, 3 points off, although the goal difference was quite some difference. They conceded 87 goals this season. I do believe that they are very lucky. If there was more than one relegation spot this year, they would have definitely gone down. They have been one of the worst teams, actually. I think I stand by what I say. They do have a rotten core, and I think they probably. I won't give away too many predictions, but I could potentially consider putting them in a relegation zone this season coming up. But you never know. 18th, Oxford City. Well, Oxford City were actually 5th. I mean, that was quite a way off, wasn't it? We're normally mid-table, and so I didn't really know what was going to come in to this season with all the sort of changes which has gone on at that club in bringing in players, but they've definitely done much better than my expectations. 17th went with Chippenham Town, and Chippenham are actually 7th, 10 points difference. Well, I always thought they were a mid-table side. I mean, they are very lucky to have reached the playoffs, to be honest. They have had a very good run of form towards the end of the season. I didn't see that happening. I thought that at one point in the season, thought it would be drifting into an 11th, 12th territory, which would be more akin to the mid-table, which I was thinking. So well done, Chippenham, for getting better than I actually thought you would. Tunbridge Angels, the first one I actually got correct. Spot on, I went with 16th, and they finished 16th. They always finish fifth place. I mean, it was a bit of an easy prediction, but you know what? I'm going to take that one as a very good prediction. 15th, Concord Rangers actually finished 14th. There was only 1 point difference between the two teams at the end, between 14th and 15th. So I think that wasn't a too bad prediction, really. They do have quite a large squad for the league. But I did blame the manager, and I think probably the manager has come down to it. They weren't ever really relegation challengers, though, as I originally thought they might be. They've always been around this sort of point of 14th throughout the season. 14th went with Billericay Town. They actually got relegated in the end. Commiserations to them. They normally finish mid-table. They normally do. So I don't know why they've fallen off a cliff this season. I do, because they've had some bad players, but I also thought they had some good ones. But clearly, the good ones either left or are not actually as good as I thought they were. So, yeah. 30th went with Hemel Hempstead. They actually finished 15th. Again, there wasn't much between them, only a point. Really not much difference there. But they were a team which I thought would reach mid-table because they had good enough players, but I didn't think the manager was good enough. And I think that's kind of proven to be the case. 12th, Braintree Town. Well, they actually finished 17th. It's kind of both mid-table, isn't it, at this point? But I thought that they had good enough players in some departments to do better than they actually did in the end. Maybe a bit of misplaced trust in Ryan Maxwell, who did well with Walthamstow. So maybe I shouldn't have considered him as good. 11th, Havant to Waterlooville. Actually finished 8th. 6 points difference here. They finished the curtailed season in 9th, so they have actually improved there. Rather than regressed. I did believe they would challenge. I did say they would. But I think I thought probably worse. Paul does well than he actually is. 10th, Magestone United. Well, Magestone United actually finished up winning the league. So congratulations, you've proved me wrong. I think you proved a lot of people wrong. I don't think many people would have thought that Maidstone, out of all teams, would have been the one to have been promoted this season. I know they normally challenge for the playoffs, but they do. I did say at the beginning they had a strong international squad, and the manager is experienced. But I should have had more faith in that conviction, being like, yeah, they're going to go ahead and win the league. But 9th, Dartford, they actually finished 4th. Again, not a great prediction. I did actually think they had a weaker squad than they actually did. So I did think, though, that the manager was a good manager. So I did say that the management was good, and it's proven to be the case, hasn't it? 8th, Eastbourne Borough, they finished 6th. Not much in the end, still 3 points. I think they are quite lucky to have had such a good start to the season, which kept them in the playoffs. I think they definitely let a lot of people down at the end of the season. I just didn't think they'd be consistent enough all season, and they kind of haven't been, but the standards that they set at some points, they did actually do rather well. I mean, 7th, Hungerford Town. They actually finished 12th, only 10 points off, but that's still quite a gap. They did finish the curtailed season in 7th, so I thought that was going to be they're going to do it again. They also had a winning manager in charge, who won 14 trophies, by the way. I am going to stress that, and the fact that they finished in 12th isn't an achievement from his behalf, really. Sixth one with Ebbsfleet United. Well, they finished third. I mean, both of them both finished in the playoff positions. Both my prediction and in reality. I did think they'd be pretty comfortable in the playoffs in the end. I don't know why I didn't go higher. I said there'd be 9 points clear, though, of the playoffs, and they've been a bit more than that this season, haven't they? But I did say that the squad is unbelievable at this level. Well, you could kind of qualify that. They did reach the playoff final. Dorking was so good. I mean, they were unfortunate not to win the league, let alone go and win the playoffs. You'll find out why I say that later. Fifth one went with Solihull Town and actually finished 13th. A bit of a disappointing season for Slough, really. But last season, they did finish mid-table as well. So maybe this is starting to be a trend emerging. They used to historically be a very good team pushing to playoffs. And maybe even in the National League, I think they were for quite a while. So I did think that they'd reach the playoffs. They didn't in the end. Maybe need to rethink for next season. Fourth one of Chelmsford City actually finished 19th. A pretty poor prediction, all things considering. I thought the attacking options were good. I thought that I did say they were going to score 50 goals, and they actually scored 46. So I wasn't too far off. It's just, I don't know why 50 goals was going to get them into the playoff. So, I mean, I thought they were going to do much better in defence. They did concede 53 goals. So maybe if you remove a lot of them, they could have got much more points. But, that's not a good prediction, really. Afc City, I went with third. They actually finished 18th. Bit of a surprising season for them. They normally reach the playoffs. A bit disappointed, I imagine they are, the fans of Bath. And I thought they had a decent enough squad to do it. Although I did think that the strike force was going to be a bit of an issue. And it kind of proved out. They've only scored 45 goals, which is really more towards the mid-table mark. Well, they haven't actually got promoted since 2006-07, but they have been in the playoffs for quite a bit. So I think this was a good enough prediction at the time. It was just not coming to fruition. Second, I went with Hampton Richmond Brother. They actually finished 11th. Well, the thing is, they do normally finish around about 11th. They do challenge quite a bit for the playoffs. I just thought that it was going to be we're going to have a good rhythm this season. They were going to go ahead and just keep on pushing. But not quite. I don't know where the issue really lies for them to take that next step. A couple more signings maybe, but they are close. First, I went with Dorking Wanderers and actually finished second. They did sort of kind of drop off towards the end, but they did score over 100 goals. I mean, they scored 101 goals. So, I mean, they could have well won the league, really. They did gain promotion, though. I did have a bit of concern about the skill of a full squad. Think that could kind of be argued. They did concede 53 goals, which is a bit too many, really. If they didn't concede a couple of them goals, they may have won the league. But yeah, I'm happy with the Dorking predictions. The National League, the one which went absolutely horribly this season. I mean, I should have predicted this was not going to be my best one at the beginning of the season. I should have kept my opinion sort of to myself, really, about this one. 23rd, straight off the bat, I went with Solihull Moors, and they nowhere near 23rd. They finished third, the complete opposite end of the table. But I did think it was radical at the time. I don't know what made me do it. I thought the manager was good, so I don't know why that was the case. I also thought the squad was good. I don't really know why I went with it. Must have been pretty mental, or as a lot of people were saying in the comments below, I was on drugs. Maybe I was. I wasn't actually. But a lot of people were saying I was. 22nd, Bromley. Well, they actually finished 10th, so obviously much better. I knew I was going to get stick for this. I mean, I even said so in the video. I mean, it was more logical. They only had 14 players at the time I was making these predictions. And I thought they were going to have an injury crisis. But you know what? They really didn't. And I mean, the manager is inexperienced, but it's clearly worked out for them. So don't really know what to say. 21st, I did go for Dover Athletic, and Dover Athletic have actually been relegated. So I've actually got a relegated team correct. The 12 points deduction at the time, I mean, I kind of knew it was coming. I knew it because I thought they were going to be liquidated because I was hearing all these things about what was happening at the club. I knew about the perilous situation during COVID. So I knew they were going to struggle this season. And even had enough players to form a starting 11 at this time on made these predictions. And I mean, that's come to prove as a fact, hasn't it, really? 1 point all season. I know it's not actually 1 point, it's 13 points. But still, you look at Derby, right, they had 21 points deducted. I know it's not exactly the same situation. I think Derby actually had it slightly rougher. But they managed to pick up 55 points all season and give it a right good go. Dover, you've picked up, you've had 2 wins all season. 2 wins. You knew you were going to get relegated from the start, and you decided, you know what, we're not going to even try. So that's what you get. I mean, the chairman also needs to take some responsibility, to be honest. I mean, yeah. 20th with Halifax. Oh, why did I go with FC Halifax Town has been 20th? No, actually 4th. Oh, I did know they had a good squad. I knew they did. I felt just because this league was going to be so competitive, they were going to struggle this season with the competition to get more players in, but they didn't. So that was not good. 19th went with Barnet. They actually finished 18th. There was 4 points gap here, but it was only really one position. It did look for a while. Barnet could have been 19th, but they could have also been 16th at one point in the season. So, I mean, yeah, they've had a bit of a roller coaster this season, and they really should have been relegated last season. So, I think it was an all right prediction to say they were going to stay up, really. They have had the desperate improvement, though, that I was qualifying that they needed. 18th win with Southend United, actually finished 13th. Probably not as bad as I thought they were going to be. It was only 8 points difference, so there wasn't much difference there. I did think it was going to be a very tough competition this season. I mean, it's kind of proved to be that. Anyone from 11th upwards really has been challenging. And some of the teams which are below 11th, such as Yeovil and Southend and the likes of them, you would have thought, yeah, you would have been you would have thought they would have been a bit better. But I'm glad I went with this prediction in the end. Maybe I should have been a bit more generous to them, but I don't think it was too bad. It was approximately mid-table. 17th went with Torquay. They finished 11th. Again, sort of mid-table. It was quite an unpopular prediction at the time. A lot of people picked me up on this, saying, oh, Torquay, they normally are in the playoff predictions. And I know they are. They normally are. They didn't get it this year. And I think the defence was a concern to me. It was, but I don't know why. They conceded 54 goals, which, if you look at it, is probably about where they finished. I think they could have done better, but I also predicted that they would have done worse. Yeah. 16th, Notts County, absolutely ridiculous. They finished 5th. I don't know what was making me feel this. Probably the negativity towards Nottingham, really. They shouldn't be in the National League. Sorry about that. I thought that it was not enough to have 16 players. And I think they did actually improve the squad after I said that for quite a bit. They lost a match though versus Hornchurch. I think it was during pre-season friendly or a competition. I can't entirely remember where I got that from. And I made the naive error of looking at the the pre-season results and making a judgment call off that. No, I'm not going to be doing that next season. Definitely not. 15th went with Weymouth, and Weymouth actually finished in the relegation zones in 22nd. Yeah, I've kind of over-egged the hype about Brian Stock. I thought it was much better than he actually is. I thought it was going to improve the side. I don't think they have overly. I did think the squad of 14 was a slight worry if they wanted to finish above mid-table, and it does very much ring true that they didn't have the squad in the end, didn't they? 40th for Grimsby Town actually finished 6th. That, congratulations on going through in the quarterfinals against Notts County. That was a difficult sort of task to overcome. I thought they were going to do much worse. Relegation to the National League, it can go one of two ways. You can either end up stagnating and getting stuck in it, or you can get straight back into the playoffs like Grimsby have done. I don't know if they'll get promoted this season. I actually went with Halifax to be promoted originally. I think it was then, but I don't know really where Grimsby are at. I think they will get promoted soon. I want to say maybe not this year. Maybe they will, but they will get promoted again soon, as I said at the beginning of the season. 30th over Kings Lynn, really not correct here. They actually finished in 21st. Well, that was not really a good enough prediction, was it? I thought the back-to-back promotions would continue with their momentum, and I thought, yeah, they had a good enough squad depth. They'll be comfortable mid-table and maybe even carry on pushing up in years to come. No, they weren't. The relegation candidates this year was really, really off it. It never looked like anyone other than the bottom three were going to get out of the situation of being relegated. If you could sort of even tell the bottom two for at least, I think you could wipe them out as soon as you got to sort of December time. Kings Lynn also very quickly got into that sort of boat as well. I think it wasn't long until I think they were also looking a bit off it, but they were just picking up slightly more points. Aldershot have been a bit iffy this season, so maybe they could have survived, but definitely not 13th. 12th went with Altrincham. Well, they finished 14th. There was 4 points gap in the end. I mean, I take it. I will take it. I did think that they'd finish mid-table. They finished about mid-table. So what can I say? They have done well enough in my mind for where the size of the club really is. A few years ago, they were national. I think maybe even last. It wasn't last season. It might be the season before that were in the National League North, because I don't think anyone actually got promoted that season. 11th, Eastleigh. So yeah, that was probably not my best call. 11th Eastleigh? Where actually? They're in 19th. So, no. I mean, they usually finish in the sort of upper echelons of the league, promoting maybe towards 11th. No, they have not this season. They really dropped off. And they could even be relegated next season. We'll have to wait and see what the summer transfer window comes, when a lot of the league above players are sort of moving down because I don't know, they have to get some recruitment right this coming up. 10th for Chesterfield, actually finished 7th. Not too bad in the end, really. I don't think they deserved on merit in the end to qualify for the playoffs after that run at the end of the season. But most of the season, they will look like they were going to be much better than that. They were actually on top of the league for, I think, at least 3/4 of the season. They have fallen so bad. And unfortunately, it was the club I couldn't predict 2 times correctly in a row. Chesterfield, you were normally my lucky charm when it came to being predicted correctly in the National League. But, sometimes I've got to put my hands up and say, I got this one wrong. But it wasn't that wrong, was it? I could have finished 10th if they didn't have such a good start to the season. 9th, Yeovil Town. Well, they finished 12th. They have disappointed a lot of the fans at this season. They've really fallen, haven't they? They were in Championship in 2013-14. I'm going to say now that the 9th prediction was actually kind of being generous now, if you look at it in hindsight. But, yeah, I think I could say that it was being, all right. Wealdstone, I put as 8th. They finished 16th, so not really in much shape for that to be the correct prediction. I had a bit of a soft spot for the club, like I said at the beginning of the season. I mean, kind of seems to be true. They were nowhere near 8th in the end, was they? 7th, Maidenhead United. Well, they finished 17th. No, that was not good. Not good at all. That cool. Well, I thought they were going to carry on. They were a club on rise, and I thought there were shoots of recovery. And I can still see these shoots emerging. They've not had a bad end of the season, and I could do that bold thing and go and do it a stupid, naive thing again and say we're going to do it next season. But, 6th, I went with Woking. They actually finished 15th. Well, that was a bit of a letdown, really. They do normally finish mid-table. I thought Alan Dawson was a good manager. I mean, was he? I know they don't normally reach themselves, so it was a bit of an odd one. Stockport County, I went with 5th. They actually won the league, so congratulations, Stockport. Back to the league football. Not been there in a while, have you? How does that feel? Good, probably. I thought they were a good team. I thought they were going to reach the playoffs. I didn't quite think they had enough to go just beyond that to the top of the league. I mean, but I'm happy with that. 4th, Dagenham and Redbridge. They actually finished 8th. I mean, they normally finish around about 8th, so I thought they were going to do slightly better this year. Well, they actually apparently they don't. I did say they'll go 18th to 12th and then we're progressing. So they clearly have progressed again. Maybe not by 6 places, but still 4. So it is progression. I might even have a cheeky shout that you might go into the playoffs next season. But you have to wait to my predictions to see that because I've not even thought about the rest of the teams. 3rd, I went with Wrexham. They finished in 2nd. I mean, it was the last day of the season, wasn't it? But it looked like, I think, no, it was not the last day, the penultimate day of the season, sorry. But it looked like, you know what? They could bottle this. They could really, but no. But Wrexham won their game to ensure they got 2nd place pretty much. But, I mean, it was the playoffs either way. There was not much difference. It was 1 point in it. I'm going to say that was an all right prediction. 2nd, I went with Boreham Wood. They actually finished 9th. They had a bit of a disappointing season in the end. They have been pushing for the playoffs, though, throughout most of it. And I would say that wasn't a bad prediction at the start of the season, and maybe they can go and start again and go for the playoffs again next season. First, I went with Aldershot Town, which was the most stupid prediction I've ever made in my life, and we're going to move on from it. But, I mean, it just is. I don't know what possessed me to say that. They finished in 20th. There's no way I'm going to. I just thought I looked at the Sutton and the Harrogate Towns of the past, and they've not really been big hitters in the league and got promoted in the season, so I thought I'll go on a hoof. Well, that just didn't work, did it? League 2, I went bottom of the league in 24th. I actually went with Bradford City. They finished in 14th. So I thought because they were stagnating, really, and they have been slipping towards that end of the table, haven't they? They have sort of been around the 18th mark. And I thought that Derek Adams wasn't a good manager. Well, he wasn't a good manager because they dismissed him. So, I mean, it kind of worked, didn't it, though? Because I reckon if they did keep Derek Adams, they'd be certainly a lot more further down the league than they are in 14th. 23rd, I went with Northampton Town. Why on earth have I said that? Northampton Town, they're currently in fourth. Well, they were in fourth come the end of the season. But how they did not get automatically promoted, I do not know. That final day of the season was the maddest thing I think I have ever seen in football. It's been bigger than the final day of the Premier League, forget it. It was a final day of League 2 action that I was so shocked at, really. So, commiserations rather to Northampton because you lost the playoffs, didn't you, against Mansfield. I wanted to actually see at least Northampton, or maybe I wouldn't mind Mansfield to see them play next season. Bit of a local club, isn't it? I just thought, relegation can be a bit of a you can go one or two ways. And it clearly went positive for them instead of being the slippery slope I thought it was going to be. 22nd went Colchester United. Well, Colchester finished 15th. Bit better than they were last season, I think. Last season, they were not that good, really. I don't know where I see Colchester going, really. I don't think there's any progression in that club at all. It's all stale, mid-table, mediocrity. They're fine with that. Yeah. 21st went with Sutton United, and they actually finished 8th. Hats off to Sutton United. You have blown me away this season. Absolutely outstanding performances for them. I have never thought I'd see a team. I know the National League, when they go up into the League 2, normally do very, very well because there's not actually that much of a gap between the two leagues compared to other leagues such as League 1 to the Championship or the Championship to the Premier League. There's not that much of a gap because of a small relegation league turnover at the bottom of the league. So why am I surprised they got promoted and they got that good winning attitude? But I just didn't think they would. 20th went Forest Green Rovers. They actually ended up winning the league, didn't they? Of course they did. I just felt that Forest Green, they sacked their managers too much. I'm still very much for that. I think they sacked one manager this season already. But just because of why the heck not. Although, no, he might have left. There was that whole hoo-ha they've had recently, hasn't they, with Watford, about how you actually get your manager to leave your club and stuff, and they've appointed the one from Notts County today. So, yeah, that was a poor shout, really, from my behalf. 19th for Crawley Town actually finished 12th. They normally finish mid-table. And I actually was like, they have very good players, maybe even too good. But that doesn't make sense of why I would put them 19th. I did say it was going to be another mid-table finish, but underwhelming. I don't think it's been underwhelming. I don't think it's been overwhelming. It's been all right for Crawley. 18th went with Walsall, actually finished 16th. There was only 1 point in it in the end. So maybe I wasn't too far off this one. It could have come down to the end of the season, really, couldn't it? And I was like, Yeah, that's pretty much where they finished last season. And so why not again? They finished 16th. No, I'd accept it. 17 went with Hartlepool United. I actually got that call spot on. Another spot on, the second one of the video. I was just like, well, yeah, they've been at this level before. They know how to adjust. They'll do it. And I was spot on. I was 100% accurate. I'm proud with that prediction. And we're going to move on before I can celebrate anymore. 16th with Barrow. I don't think that was too bad of a prediction at the start of the season. I actually finished in 22nd, 10 points off it. The start of the season was very good, but it was then when it really went to, I think it was around about, they lost to Carlisle after 3 losses in a row, and now they've just sort of drifted to the bottom of the table. They weren't quite in free fall, but they were. Was it the club I said they were in free fall? There was one of them which I said in the last video. Maybe someone can comment down below which I said was in free fall. But I think it was someone else, maybe not Barrow. But they were at one point looking like they could have got 16th. 15th, Exeter. Well, they finished second. So, of course, that one was another wrong. I didn't trust Matt Taylor. I don't know why. I didn't trust the goalkeeping. And I don't know why. I mean, they conceded only 41 goals. They have some of the best goalkeepers out there. I have no idea what I was talking about. So clearly, don't listen to me when you're basing predictions. 14th were Bristol Rovers, and of course they had that magical 3rd place. I just don't think that Joey Barton was a good manager, and I'm sad to say that he was actually a good manager. I mean, is he? He's a bit violent. Gets some scraps on the sidelines. But he knows how to get out of League Two, so clearly that is the attitude you need to take to get out of that league. And so I would say that probably not my best call. 13th went with Salford City. Well, they finished 10th in the end. I don't think that was too bad of a shout. There was quite a bit of a gulf, really, between the two positions. It sounds a lot closer than it actually was. But they always sack their managers too early. They always just consistently, a chain of managers are just sack, and sack. Just, a bit like the Watford of League Two. It doesn't breathe success, and that is why they've ultimately failed to reach the playoffs when they could have very easily done so. In 12th, I went with Port Vale. Port Vale finished in 5th. Not a great shout in the end. No, Port Vale are normally, and I did say they were always on the upper end of the table, and they can be flexible. And Clark had even achieved promotions with Bristol Rovers, so I did believe that he could reap joy with Port Vale over time. And I don't know, they may have dismissed their manager, I can't remember, but it clearly has reaped joy over time because they have finished in the playoffs. I can't remember whether it was Port Vale or Swindon which progressed through to the final. You need to let me know. Can't remember that one. 11th went with Harrogate. Maybe a bit of an over prediction. They did finish 19th. Slightly overestimated them. I just thought that Simon Weaver is such a good manager, and I actually stick by my convictions that he is a good manager. He's been loyal to Harrogate. If you look at them, they have finished in 19th. I don't think many people were expecting them to finish so strongly. There's a massive gulf between them and relegation candidates, really. Although that's been the case all season, that they have been awful, the bottom two. I mean, I don't think you could say anyone else apart from them two deserve to be relegated. I mean, there could be an argument for Stevenage, but even then, they've had a good point in their season as well. 10th went with Oldham. Oh, how I was wrong. I was so wrong. They were in 23rd. I mean, I didn't really know much about Oldham's backroom situation, behind the scenes situation, until this season. It's only recently that I've found I kind of knew they don't have the best owners, but Nobody does at that level. But I didn't think they were going to be that bad. They are horrendous. They're horrible people. I would not want their owners. Me and you both, Oldham, we know that we are some of the screwed over clubs in football at the moment. So believe me, I would love for you to do well and get promoted next season. But I just don't see it happening. When they got rid of Keith Curlin, he was doing all right. He was not too bad. And then they just left the other manager, who I can't remember what his name is, it's escaping me at the moment, in for such a long time, and he's done horribly. He's got them absolutely nowhere. Hopeless. 9th Newport. Well, they're actually 11th. So I don't think that's too far off. There is quite a big of a gulf in points difference. There is 6 points between them two places. I just thought, you know what, normally reaching the playoffs, and I think it was because they lost the manager at one point, and I don't think they sacked him. I think he left, and that sort of just forced Newport to go into a sort of meandering off path. Michael Flynn it was, and I don't think he's still at the club anymore. I think he went. Was it? Where was it? He went. There was. Was it? No, Michael Flynn might still be at the club. No, he went to Warsaw because I think they may have sacked him actually. But that was not a good call, clearly. But it wasn't far off. I'm fine with that prediction. 8th, Leighton. They finished in 13th. Probably a bit of an overestimate for Leighton. I thought they were going to challenge for playoffs. It did look at one point that they may be an underdog that might have actually been able to sneak in. I do still rate Kenny Jackett as a manager. But I do think that it's not an underachievement, but not an overachievement. It's sort of where I probably should have predicted them in finishing around about that place. 7th, forgot Rochdale. They actually finished in 18th. I mean, they spent a long period of time in League One, so you thought that the team is League One standard, but they did need to add, and I don't know if they really did. I don't think they gave their full backing to the management. 6th, Carlisle. Well, that was a mess, wasn't it? And they actually finished in 20th. I thought they were on an upwards trajectory there. They're bringing in good players with the youth. Callum Guy should not be made captain. There's no way he should be captain. Why are you captaining a 24-year-old? But that is by the by, to be honest. That is not the entire reason why they have slipped down to 20th. Maybe I should be more realistic and think that they will finish around that mark next season. 5th, Stevenage. Well, I was a bit too into the playoffs. No. They didn't. They finished 21st, so they did keep quite a big gap between them and relegation. Maybe they should have been relegated a few seasons back. I know that Macclesfield had that complaint, and that was why the club ultimately folded. So it kind of feels like, I know it wasn't entirely their fault, but the gap between the revenue streams is massive, and it could have probably forced them out of business. But, I think they were going on that path already. 4th was Scunthorpe United. Again, didn't really know what was going on behind the scenes. I didn't know they were under a transfer embargo at the time. I was a bit uneducated about that particular regard. They finished bottom of the league in 24th. But I did say it's either promotion or relegation. And I thought this was the last season that anyone with League One experience is going to stick around. And that's probably going to be the case because they've ended up with relegation and they have been woeful. 3rd, Swindon. Well, they finished 6th, so not quite. It was 3 points off. It did look at one point that I may have been correct. They were getting towards that end of the sort of table. Sort of slipped away, but they've not been bad all season. They've not been amazing, like top end, but they've certainly been very good. I think in most leagues they'd be around about that position. So I mean, they did need a new staff, but I don't know if they actually got it. But they did well. Second, Mansfield Town. I'm happy with this. They actually finished in 7th, I know, but they were in the end in the playoffs. I knew Nigel Clough would work his magic as he usually does. I thought he was an extremely good manager, and he's brought in the great players that he knows. And I thought it was going to be quite a comfortable promotion. It took a bit of time for him to settle. I mean, I think that I should have kind of more expected that. He was so long at Burton Albion that it will take a bit of time to settle into the new club. So maybe I shouldn't have been so over the top about him. But they could still get promoted via the playoffs, is all I'm saying. And the final one first went with Tranmere Rovers. And this was a disappointing season for Tranmere fans. Actually finished in 9th, I imagine. But they weren't too pleased with that. They were very close last season to getting promoted. They actually finished in playoffs finals. And they haven't even reached the playoffs of this season. So it's got to be down as a disappointment. And I thought they would have done much better. On to League One. Well, we'll start again at the bottom of the table. I went with 24th with Doncaster Rovers. Finished in 22nd. Didn't look like it for much of a season, I am going to tell you that. It did very much look that they were going to be bottom of the league. But a fairly strong end to the season has actually resulted in them being much better than 24th. They've been 22nd. That's not much better, is it? But they have been relegated. I thought I was going to get stick for this one, and I didn't actually get that much stick for it, and I was actually pretty much correct. The end of last season was so poor, and so that had to translate into this season, and it has. I'm sorry. They're going to lose Omar Bogle and Tommy Rowe. There's no way they're going to be sticking around in League Two, surely. 23rd, Cheltenham. They finished in 15th. They did much better than I thought by getting when they come to being promoted. They can either carry on that goodwill, and they can go on a run and either get promoted or cement themselves in the league like Cheltenham have done, or they will do horribly well adjusting to the new division and get relegated, like Crewe have done. So I thought it was going to be difficult for them to adjust to the new league because they hadn't been at that level since 2008-9. It was a bit of a while. That was, even then, that was played with all sorts of things. And there wasn't even a chairman at the time in the beginning of the season, but I don't even know how they've managed to do it. They have managed to push on and get to the 15th position, which is quite good. 22nd went with Morecambe, actually finishing 19th. There wasn't much difference, really. 4 points in it. I thought they needed to adjust very quickly, as they had a new manager coming in, Stephen Robinson. And he has a bad record in English football with clubs. And so I thought that was going to make Morecambe a much worse club. They actually did manage to survive. I thought relegation was an almost certainty. I'm still not convinced that they're going to stay up next season, to be honest. I'm thinking that they are going to be probably quite high up on people's lists of predictions of people to be relegated. 21st went with Plymouth Argyle. This one was a bit of a poor shout, really, because Plymouth Argyle actually finished 7th. They weren't that far away from the playoffs, actually. I think ultimately, I did say Ryan Lowe was good, but they lost Ryan Lowe. But I did also think they'd be too gung-ho, and that gung-ho-ness has actually worked, doesn't it? They've scored, though, 68 goals, so they clearly haven't actually scored as many goals as I thought they do, and also they've not conceded as many goals as I thought they would. So I thought there was going to be about 80 goals conceded. There's been about half that. Well, Rotherham, I went 20th. This was a stupid call. They finished in second. I'm just waiting for the day that this actually does happen to Rotherham. It's going to happen at one point. They can't just be going between League One and the Championship and consistently be challenging for promotion when they get relegated. I mean, they won't finish in 20th anytime soon. That was a stupid call. But maybe in mid-table, maybe just one day. They need to, unless they survive next season in the Championship. If that's the case, then they could maybe build up. 19th went with Wigan. They actually won the league. I mean, what a story. Really, what a story. From being in administration only a couple of seasons ago, being almost relegated last season with a 12-point deduction or something like that. Was it 12-point deduction? Or there was some point deduction, I think. Or they had to get a complete new squad anyhow. They had manager Liam Richardson, which I had not got a very good manager in that regard. His win percentage was not great at the beginning of the season. I thought that only a new manager coming in would save him. I know that's obviously not been necessarily the case because I believe Liam Richardson is now actually going to be playing in the Championship next season. Because, well, he will be, won't he? Unless someone coaxes him away, which is also a possibility. I know there's been a lot of clubs rumoured with him. 18th went with Bolton Wanderers. They did do slightly better, though. Slightly better. They finished in 9th. I just knew that they weren't going to be in the playoffs. Every sort of Bolton fan was saying, "Oh, we're going to go up again, and we're going to go a massive storm the league and all that." Whoa! Just tamper down the expectations. I did think that Ian Evatt was a good manager. And, I mean, I think he still is. I mean, he's got them in 9th. But 18th, that was probably a bit harsh. Just a bit too harsh on them. 17th went with Fleetwood. They actually finished in 20th. A bit of a yap off there. It was 12 points in the end. I just thought, because they were quite bad last season, they were going to also be quite bad this season, and that's proved very much to be the case. Although I did believe that they were maybe going to turn them out, but I did think the defence was going to be an issue, and that has very much proven to be the case. 82 goals conceded. I mean, should be relegated for that, maybe. If you look at it, it's on par with Doncaster. Yeah. That needs to improve if they're going to do anything next season. 16th went with Crewe. Crewe actually finished in 24th. Crewe was sort of my ones, which was like, yeah, you know what? They could do well. Because David Artell wasn't too bad. I thought we were going to do worse than last season, but just be comfortable enough in a sort of halfway point in the league. No, not really. But, you know, sometimes you get things wrong. And David Artell, I don't think he's a bad manager. Just, there was something wrong with Crewe from the start of the season, really. Oxford United went with 15th. They actually finished 8th. So, again, there was about 20 points difference from this. And I knew that it was going to be a wacky call, the Oxford one. I did think, though, there's always that one team who pushes for the playoffs or is even in the playoffs that sort of drops off. This season, it's sort of been Gillingham, you could argue. they've been pushing for playoffs. You could argue Doncaster, they've been pushing for playoffs historically. You could even argue someone like Charlton. But Oxford haven't had that sort of effect. Yeah, poor call. I went with 14th with Ipswich. They actually finished 11th, a bit better than I predicted. I've actually got a lot more points than that, so it is a lot more better. But they're still falling off, aren't they? They're not really. How do I put this? They're just not going anywhere in the future. We need a massive rehaul. It's not a problem with manager. Paul Cook's a great manager. He did really well with Wigan in the Championship. Unfortunate not to manage to get them relegated. Well, it was the 12 points which ultimately kicked them down, didn't it? So, where is it from Ipswich? If you're an Ipswich fan, let me know. Where are you going from here? 30th with AFC Wimbledon. This was a bit of a wacky call. They've actually gone down in 23rd. I was just thought that, you know what, Wimbledon they always seem to start the season all right, but then they sort of fall away. And I kind of think that happened this season. I think they were around about 13th for the first month and a half, but they couldn't contain that level consistently, and that's why they've been relegated. So, all the best for Wimbledon. Maybe you will do well in League Two, but we'll see. 12th went with Cambridge, actually finishing 14th. I'm not too upset about this prediction. It's only 3 points difference and 1 goal. We really swung it in either way. They could have got this at the end of the season, really, couldn't they? Not much to say about that. I don't know if they're going to improve or regress next season. We'll just have to see. But well done to Cambridge in this season. 11th went with Shrewsbury. They actually finished 18th. Yeah, I'm not incredibly proud with this one. I was sort of singing Steve Cotterill as being a good manager. And, he has been promoted 4 times. So there is clearly something good about him. He's just not really worked out this season. I think that's fair to say. 10th, I went with Gillingham. That was a poor call in the end. They did finish in 21st. Although I don't think many people would have seen Gillingham being relegated at the start of the season. Last season, they finished 10th. The season before that, they finished 10th. And they've always been pushing and around about that mark. Thought Steve Evans was a very good manager. Well, how wrong I was, and I've actually done a massive U-turn on that one. If you watched which manager should have been sacked video from last week, you would have seen very much why I believe that he is no longer fit for football. 9th went with Accrington Stanley. It was a bit of an underdog wild call, and they did finish in 12th in the end, so I'm kind of glad I backed them. They did finish 11th last season. So is it progression or is it regression? I think it's about Accrington Stanley's level, to be honest. John Coleman, I think, is still a good manager. A very good manager. I think, I don't know where to put them next season. I'll have to think about that. But it probably will be in about this region of the table again. 8th, I went with Lincoln. Actually finished 17th. That's what was quite a big drop off. Actually, this was the team which I think Oxford United, I was predicting what's going to happen instead of Lincoln. I don't really know what's happened. How have you gone from being in the playoffs last season to being almost, I don't know, falling off cliff? They weren't quite relegation candidates, but they've been in the bottom of the table for most of it. They dismissed on. They didn't actually dismiss him, did they? Michael Appleton left. He sort of resigned and wanted to move and do his own thing. So I just thought, Lincoln, they'd do all right. They won't quite get to the playoffs again. It's the same with Barnsley situation, isn't it? In the Championship. Really need to improve. 7th went with Wickham, and they probably should have been in 7th come the end of the season. Everything sort of fell fortunately to them. Out of all things that could have happened, they won their last game, and Plymouth lost theirs. So, I mean, they ultimately haven't been promoted, thankfully. Their owner is a horrible person. That American is just so obnoxious. Sorry about that. But I do rate Gareth Ainsworth as a manager. And despite me telling you to sack him at the, not this season, but the end of last season's video about sacking managers. But I did think they were going to return to the Championship one day, just not that season, and it proved to be the case. 6th went with Sunderland, though, actually 5th. There's only 1 point difference between this, really. So, you know what? I did think it was going to be a playoff heartbreak, though. That hasn't been the case. That has been victory. Although I did do a U-turn again on the predictions for playoffs. I did think they were going to be promoted. Well, Lee Johnson hasn't stayed in a job. I didn't think he was great, but maybe he shouldn't have been dismissed, being for they were in 3rd when he was dismissed. 5th went with Burton Albion. I'm a bit disappointed with Burton this season, really, finishing in 16th. They've sort of had 2 wins, 2 draws, 2 losses. 2 draws, 2 wins, 2 losses. It's sort of been a weird, unpredictable pattern, but they've sort of 2 of the same results back to back and then doing 2 of the same results again. I think I wasn't alone with a lot of people backing them as a dark horse. Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank being a great manager. Well, I could well back them if they're going to have another massive turnover, I reckon, this year as well in players. I'm already seeing all sorts of players being gone and players coming in and stuff, or rumours of anyhow. So you've got my full support, maybe not to reach the playoffs next season, but to do well. 4th, I went with Portsmouth. Portsmouth had a disappointing season in 10th. I hear lots of people saying that Portsmouth will do well next season, actually, maybe reaching somewhere like 3rd or 4th next season, already in the betting odds for League One. I thought this would be an all right move. I thought this would be not controversial at all. They always do well in the league, and it's kind of proved to be correct, really. Well, incorrect, but would have been proved correct previously, but not this season. 3rd, for the 3rd time this video, a dead-on correct prediction. Nailed this one. Milton Keynes Dons. They have made huge leaps recently and will reach the playoffs, was what I said. And they had Russell Martin, who has since moved on to pastures new, I believe. Pretty certainly moved on to being manager of someone else. Who was it? Swansea, that's it. So he has moved on to better things. And I'm not sure whether I'll quite back them to do this well next season. Probably going to have a bit of a drop-off next season. But I do think, they've got a good squad there. I did think they were going to win the playoffs, though, and we didn't. Charlton, I thought were going to be 2nd. What has happened, Charlton? The Charlton fan on this channel, please let me know. Please, what has happened to your club? Charlton have finished in 13th position, nowhere near 2nd. Used to be a good Championship club, and now look. You even have a Welsh national player with Chris Gunter, along with players like James Stockley, Ben Watson. What is going on? I thought you were going to get automatic promotion. You let me down. Sheffield Wednesday, I actually went with winning the league. They finished in 4th in the end. Bit of a disappointment. They've got well good enough squad to be in League One, probably Championship standard squad. They've got very good players. Barry Bannon, I'm pretty certain, still there, although it's debatable whether he's still going to be there next season, isn't it? Probably going to be snatched up by someone. But and they didn't even deserve to be relegated. That's the thing. It was actually Derby which probably deserved to be relegated last, like the season before this one. But not quite there. Championship, I don't think I've done poorly with the Championships or the Premier League. So we're actually coming on to the area I've done better at. 24th, this may now sound really stupid, I'll put Coventry. And they've done well this season, Coventry. It was really one of two ways I look at Coventry. They had a League One standard squad. That was undoubtable, and I think you could probably still make that argument with a lot of the players being brought from League One to the Championship. But it's just something about that team spirit that they had and the last-minute goal. If it wasn't for extra time, Coventry City may well have been relegated. No word of a lie, they would have definitely been down there if it wasn't for the extra time goals they've scored this season. But yeah, I don't think that's sustainable, by the way. I do not think you are going to be 12 next season. I can either think you can do better or can do worse. I'm going to leave that for a bit more research to look at next time. But yeah, 23rd I went with Peterborough. I mean, this wasn't a bad shout in the end. They finished in 22nd. I mean, Derby, if they didn't lose their last game of the season, very well would have been 22nd, wouldn't they? I mean, it was Peterborough winning their last game and Derby losing their last game, which ultimately swapped the places. Almost an absolute dead-on one. And, well, it was obvious, I think, if you didn't say Peterborough would get relegated at the start of the season, you were very well going to be laughed off. 22nd went with Blackpool. This one was an interesting one because I don't think anyone really knew what Blackpool were going to pose when they were coming into this season. Now, you finished in 16th, so they've done better. And by the way, I absolutely adore Blackpool fans. You are one of the best fans in the Championship, and I wish you all the best for the future, actually. You've come through some horrible leaps and bounds with the Oystons, and we sort of have a connection, the Derby fans, with the Blackpool fans, so very much wishing you all the best in your future. It's just I didn't think they were quite ready for the Championship, but they clearly have been. 21st, I went with Derby County. Now, either way you look at this, it was wrong. They finished in 23rd in the actual table in the end, so they did get relegated. If they didn't get the points deduction of 21 points, they would have finished with 55 points and would have been in 17th. So it would have been wrong on that account as well. Although I was strongly tempted to actually put them in 18th, trust me. If we didn't get the financial fair play rules and only got it from the entering administration, we would have got 12 points deducted. It would have been 46. So that would have been 21st. So if we didn't have that points deduction, which debatable whether I don't think it's really debatable anymore about whether we should have got that one. If we had been, wait, was that the one which, no, that was the one which we shouldn't have been in administration for, so that's not really debatable. If we had been in administration, would have very well been in 21st. If we didn't get the points deduction, if we didn't enter administration but didn't get it for being bending the EFL rules and got 9 points back, then we would have received 43 points. We also would have been in 21st in that position as well. So I don't think 21st is a bad shout. We probably needed another striker. We did get the 3 transfers which were training with us apart from Sonne and Luco, which probably would have been more helpful than Stearman, actually, coming to think about it. Would have rather had a Luco. But we needed a centre-back at the time. immediately. And I would have rather had Jagielka the whole season, actually. Shinnie and Jagielka. I reckon even if we kept hold of players like Shinnie and Jagielka, we would have actually survived. I didn't believe the squad was great. I mean, you can argue they've worked wonders. I mean, he's been given freedom of a city, for goodness sake, hasn't he? I mean, debate that in the comment section below. I do not think he should have been given freedom of the city. It's an absolute embarrassment. 20th, I got dead on correct. Birmingham City. Well, this was kind of predictable, to be honest. They finished in 20th because of the issues at the club. Lee Bowyer, I don't think will stay in the job for much longer. I don't know how he puts up with it. They're no longer that great, and they're just overspending and not paying off. They're doing exactly what Derby are doing, and they're just a few steps down the road from becoming Derby County. So watch out, Birmingham. 19th went with Luton. I did not think in any realm of possibility, and I don't think anybody who predicted at the start of the season would have thought Luton would have gone all the way to 6th. Wow. What a story. Hats off to Luton for getting to the playoffs. I just thought they were punching a bit above their weight last season, as you do. I do think that Nathan Jones is a good manager. I still do. I mean, I do think he deserves to be manager of the season, actually. It's either between that and Carlos Corberán, really, between them two clubs. I know people will say Steve Cooper, but I mean, he's expected to reach the playoffs. He's been there before. Maybe he did pick up quite a poor Forest side. But yeah, Luton certainly shocked me. Nowhere near 19th in the end. 18th went with Huddersfield. Right. This sounds stupid now that Huddersfield are in the playoff final and finished the season 3rd. Right. But last season, they finished in 17th place. I thought they were falling like a hope. They had absolutely nothing to grasp onto. They were being horrendous at parts of last season. I thought that Carlos Corberán was awful. I thought they'd spent too much money, and that really was starting to show. That is not been the case at all. But I'm not the only person who thought that Huddersfield would do poorly this season in the Championship. And you know what? Maybe they will do all right. Maybe I'm hoping that they're getting promoted into the Premier League. You better do that. 17th, Reading. Now, I thought this was actually going to be quite a controversial prediction. It actually turns out to be an over-prediction. Although if they did get their 9 points back, they would have been one place higher. But even so, they were 7th last season, weren't they? And that's why it seemed as a bit of a stupid call. But it was all down to last season being clinical. They scored by 1-goal margins, didn't shoot a lot, and won by the odd 1-0 most of the time. And I did not think that they had a good enough squad to realistically go and finish anywhere near that. And that has proven to be the case. It's actually been worse than the way I predicted. 16th, I went with Hull. They finished in 19th. I mean, not really too concerned. They've been slightly worse, but at one point it did look like they were going to be 16th. I mean, if they kept Grant McCann, they could have done so. I just thought, be comfortable. And they have been comfortable in the end, so yeah. 15th, went with Millwall. Now, it's a bit of an odd one, Millwall, because they do tend to finish upper mid-table towards playoff pushing. Now, I didn't want to put in 100% confidence in Millwall. I thought there'd be other teams which disappointed this season, which were Stoke and Swansea and Cardiff, which were going to do much better. And so I thought, 15th sounds about right. But no, they've done 9th. I think they could go on and do a bit better. They've got a load of ex-Derby players, by the way. But we're going to go and say maybe they are under-predicting them a bit. 14th, Blackburn Rovers. Well, they finished 8th in the end. I mean, if Brereton Diaz wasn't at the club, they would have 100% finished 14th or around that mark. They would have been in mid-table, maybe even battling relegation. Without a doubt, that man has single-handedly got them towards challenging for the playoffs. The thing is, we didn't know how good he was at the beginning of the season. And Adam Armstrong, as he was destined and wildly rumoured, did move to the Premier League as he went to Southampton. So, in the end, I don't think it was too bad a prediction without knowing how much Brereton Diaz was going to like World of Light. 30th were Queen's Park Rangers. They finished in 11th. There was only 2 points behind. Well, 2 points ahead, rather, of this. Lots of people thought they were going to be a dark horse this season. I didn't see it personally. I know they have a good squad, and I mean, don't get me wrong, there are still good ones, but I thought they were going to sell Lyndon Dykes. They haven't in the end. Pretty certain they haven't, anyhow. Charlie Austin, I thought, was a good goal scorer as well. They've just not been that good, have they? I mean, they were good, and then they fell off a cliff. They were good to a certain point in the season. And if the season was carrying on for 3 or 4 more games, they could well have been 13th. I mean, let's not try and cover that up. 12th, Bristol City. Well, Bristol City actually finished 17th. They did much worse this season. Normally pushed towards the playoffs. And I thought they were going to do all right with Nigel Pearson. And here there's a bit of disgruntledness towards Nigel Pearson at the moment by some of the Bristol City fans, as well as ex-player Chris Martin. We will happily have him back. Please give him back. We really need a striker at Derby, and he does really well for us. I don't know why they did so bad last season. I do actually see them coming good again. They're rumoured to be after Curtis Davis, rather Derby keep him, but he is a very good player if you do get him, even though he is 37. Ultimately, though, 12th, I'm happy with that prediction. They've slightly underperformed this season, let's be realistic. But, yeah, Vyman has been the nice shoot, though, for them. 11th for Cardiff City. Now, Mick McCarthy has done... I thought he was a good manager. I mean, you look at him, he speaks well, he's got the CV, which says that he's a good manager. But no, he got sacked within... Well, kept him around for too long for starters. He was on a woeful record. I think it was until November, December time until they decided to get rid of him, and that's probably why they weren't as high up as. I mean, it was more than just underwhelming. It was absolutely catastrophic, really. If you think about it, I was like, it was going to be a pretty underwhelming season. Well, 18th, not good enough for the people in playoffs. I thought 10th would be Nottingham Forest. You know what? Hats off to Forest. You've done all right this season, haven't you? You are going to rub that in for quite a while if you get promoted. But if you get promoted, I will be predicting you to get the worst points tally of all time in the Premier League. So please do be noted that will be the case. But 10th, I think, realistically, it was an overachievement if you look at the start of the season when Chris Hughton left. And I thought, oh my days, what have I done? Why have I over-predicted Forest? I should have gone with my gut feelings. I should have said, followed my heart and said 18th or something like that. But, I didn't. And you've turned around and done much better than I thought you would do either. 9th, I was going to go with Preston. I think that's about reasonable, 5 points off. I don't think they're challenged for playoffs anymore. I don't think that's quite the level that they're at. So I think we're going to have to verge and say they're a mid-table side. They got rid of Frankie McAvoy, despite doing well at the end of last season. I don't think he should have been dismissed, really. They're also a decent championship side, I think, ultimately. And I think if you look at it, I think lots of teams have been better than Preston this season, but lots of teams have been worse, so they deserve to be mid-table and probably more right towards that next season. 8th Barnsley, well, they actually finished in 24th. It's been a real letdown for all people involved with the club at Barnsley, really. They were really good last season. You got to the playoffs, you got to 5th. Everyone was absolutely ecstatic. It was a real overachievement, I think we can now all agree that they actually managed to do that. But I think they did actually have some decent players at the squad. But I just thought, you know what, they're not going to manage to repeat the playoffs. There's no way. We'll put them as 8th, sort of challenging, but not quite there. But no, they've gone and been the worst team in the Championship. They've been absolutely woeful all season. 30 points isn't a great return, really. They looked at one point they were going to have one of the worst Championship records. I mean, we were behind Derby pretty early on after the points deduction. I mean, once we'd overturned that, there was no being behind Barnsley, was there? 7th, Stoke. I mean, Stoke have really let me down. They finished in 14th. Is it time that we start saying that Stoke are no longer playoff candidates? Is it really time that we start saying Stoke mediocre Championship squad? Because we're going to have to, I believe. Apart from Joe Allen, maybe. But even he's not been that great this season. If no one at Stoke really strikes me as being, standout player, that one. They've been awful. We're moving on. 6th of Fulham. This was a bit of a stupid shout, really. Most people would have gone with Fulham winning the league. I just thought they would have been tampered off a bit. They wouldn't have quite be as good as last season. But Mitrovic, well, they scored 106 goals this season. I think it tells you all that Mitrovic has beaten the Championship record after the last season it was set by Ivan Toney. So I think he's 40-something goals. Absolutely ballistic statistics. And it's not just from him. You got Harry Wilson alongside. We're chipping in, I think, with 15 or something goals this season, a load of assists. Carvalho has been an absolute revelation. He's obviously now moving to Liverpool, isn't he? So I thought on deadline day, though, a lot of players would be moving out. People like Mitrovic. And I was quite worried coming into deadline day whether they'd be able to keep their squad. But they have, and that's why they're first, ultimately. 5th, we went with Middlesbrough. Now, they could have very well got 5th. They finished 5 points off it. Bit of a disappointment this season. They're going to go after. They're definitely going to go after Luton, aren't they now? Even though that's like the most sustainable. Or someone like Sheffield United for breaking FFP rules, because that's what Middlesbrough are doing right now. Trying to get clubs out of business by needless and stupid law cases which have no legal basis at all. But I feel I backed Neil Warnock at the start of the season, and Neil Warnock didn't actually do that great. He was actually quite poor, so they got rid of him. And so I think, now, I said it in my last video, it was a bad decision. In the table-wise, though, I think it does tell you a lot that it probably was the right decision. But could they have been 5th this season? I don't think so. I think they could have reached the playoffs if they kept their performances at a level that was a bit higher. Maybe not drawn so many games. Bournemouth 4th, I went with. They actually finished 2nd. So they did do better than I originally thought. It's just they did reach the playoffs last season and missed out again. But I thought they'd lose the final this season. But no, they've actually done a bit better. But I think they did bring a lot of players in at the time. I think that I did actually say that players like Mark Travers and Will Dennis are not good enough to be promoted. Well, what was I talking about? Mark Travers has been one of the greatest players in net at the moment in the Championship, arguably, up there with Grant, Marlon. Who is it? Hugh Grant, Marlon Grant, someone like that. So, no, it's not Marlon Grant. Someone Grant at Huddersfield. And Will Dennis, where is Will Dennis? Not really heard his name. I don't think has he really played this season? No, he hasn't, has he? He's been, he's. So, but Travers, he's been all right this season. So that's probably why they're a bit better than fourth this season. They've got a very good goal difference, really. Third, I went with Swansea. Well, that was a bit of a stupid call, really. They finished 15th. And it's just because for the last two seasons they reached the playoffs. And Potter, was it? That they reached the playoffs and one season. And Cooper for last season. I think they were the two managers, although Cooper might have had both. Although I'm pretty sure they did have Potter at one point. But I do think the management department has not been great this season with Swansea, not quite the right appointments, probably why they haven't been up there. And also the players have been a bit disappointing this season. If you need a bit of turnover with that squad. Second, West Brom. Well, this was a bit of a stupid call, but it didn't seem at the time. A lot of people were saying, you know what? Yeah, West Brom will do well. And I do think it's kind of, I don't think it is. I don't know whose fault it is. They've got the squad on paper that says they should be promoted. They've got some of the best players in the championship. They've got Matthias Pereira, although has Pereira actually stayed under? If that's okay, if he hasn't stayed, then I reckon that could be the reason why. Yeah, Matthias Pereira didn't stay, didn't he? Did he? He moved on to Al Hilal. But I mean, goodness knows why he moved there. But money, that's what. A lot of the players did stay that were good enough. But maybe if they kept hold of some of their players, maybe. Steve Bruce is not the right appointment. I don't know why we brought him in. Definitely won. He's gone past it, hasn't he? And Valor and Ismail wasn't too bad. They were in the playoffs when he was dismissed. First, we went with Sheffield United. They still have a chance of actually being promoted by the playoffs coming up tomorrow. I think it is actually the championship playoffs. I now look a bit stupid backing Jokanovic. That he got on paper the experience of promotion with Fulham, so it did seem like a good move at the time. But no, they got rid of him, and probably for good. I think they were languishing mid-table when they got rid of him, so it was probably a good move. Right, on to the final one with the Premier League. This I don't think was too bad in terms of predictions wise either. Some of them were a bit shoddy calls, but 20 from it with Leeds. I think they're lucky to survive this season, really are. I think Burnley should have survived. It was really, really tight. If they kept Marcelo Bielsa for 2 more games, well, not 2 more games because they lost the minute to 2, but for a bit more towards the end of the season, decided not to dismiss him, they would have 100% been relegated. They have an awful defensive record. How many goals have they conceded this season? 79. That's like second worst in the league. I mean, only Norwich are worse, and they were actually behind Norwich when they got rid of Marcelo Bielsa. I think that, I mean, it was also about disliking Leeds, but I don't know whether I'm going to quite back them to be relegated next season. Do I back them to be relegated next season? Maybe I will. For the third season in a row, then they're going to prove me wrong again. But they're really, I don't think March is much of a player to go and replace him either. And this obnoxious notion that they're going to erect a statue of Bielsa after almost ruining their club. Crikey. Watford, I got dead on. I got them in 19th, and they were 19th. I mean, this was predictable, though. If anyone didn't think that Watford were being relegated, would have been pretty stupid, wouldn't they? Same with Norwich, but we won't talk about that one until much later. Yeah. 18th went with Brentford. Now, Brentford finished in 13th. They did much better than I actually originally thought. I thought that I was originally actually going to back them as dark horses, and I'm now really regretting not doing so. Why did I not back them as dark horses? I said that I was going to, but I learned my lesson from the Euros. Well, the Euros have taught me absolutely nothing then, have they? Because although I backed Turkey as being dark horses, it was probably not the greatest move. I mean, Brentford, the last time they were in the top flight was the 1946-47 season. A lot of things has changed in football. I mean, it's not even called the First Division anymore, is it? It's called the Premier League, and you don't just dribble or stuff like that. And yeah, it's all changed. And a lot of their players weren't really well known. I think they may have done a bit worse if it wasn't for Christian Eriksen. I think I'm not being unkind when I say that. 17th went with Everton, and I didn't actually say this was a ridiculous call, but it was actually turned out to be quite cool. They were only 1 point off this place in the end of the season anyhow, so I did think that Rafa Benitez was not a good shout at the beginning of the season. I even said so in this video that I had about the Premier League predictions, but I mean, they kept him along for way too long, didn't they? They almost paid disastrous consequences for it, although I would have... They weren't as bad under Rafa Benitez as they have been under Frank Lampard, if you look at the table. So, I don't know if Frank Lampard's the right man to take them to the future either. Also look like they might have a points deduction, although that's looking unlikely now. More likely a fine and a bit of a slap on the wrist, as the Premier League often do. I thought we're only just going to survive, and I think we kind of can agree that was the case. 16th went with Southampton. We actually finished in 15th. I mean, again, only 1 point in it. I mean, if Everton won their last game, then we wouldn't be having this conversation, would we? And Southampton would be correct. But I do believe that Southampton, they're doing worse. They're getting slowly and slowly worse. I think they were 15th last season, and the season before that they were around about mid-table, where I think more upper ends towards sort of 11th, 10th area. I can't exactly remember. I think they need to get rid of Hasenhüttl. That is the issue. They got rid of his backroom staff today, I noticed. But, you know, I don't know whether that's been done with his permission or not. 15th with Aston Villa. Again, they finished 14th. I mean, if only I put Norwich in the right place and moved all the other ones down, then not down, all the other ones up, then I would have been on for an absolute cracker. I thought they'd really suffer without Grealish, and they've kind of have-ish. I thought they'd be lower mid-table to relegation strugglers. Because I knew that Grealish was going to leave. It was fairly obvious and inevitable at the time. And I didn't think Dean Smith was a great, amazing manager. I mean, he may have done all right with them originally. He did do all right as well at the beginning of the season, but then he sort of had a bad turn of form. They brought Steven Gerrard in, and I actually think he is a good manager, although he needs to sort of adapt now, use this pre-season campaign to change his tactics a bit, because he is getting a bit found out. So, 14th went with Crystal Palace, and they actually finished 12th. I mean, the problem with mid-table Premier League, you can interchange any one of these clubs around, can't you? And it's a bit of a gamble. But they normally finish around this place, and it turns out to have done so again. They have improved. Patrick Vieira is a mid-table manager. I said that exactly, and that's exactly what's happened. I think he's actually done quite well, Patrick Vieira. I think he's been one of the best managers. I think he's kind of gone under the radar this season, because you've got stories of Eddie Howe and Moyes and Potter, their respective clubs. Maybe that the fact that Vieira just sort of got them to where they normally be, but slightly better, has just gone a bit under the radar. 30th went with Tottenham, a bit of a stupid call in the end because they did finish 4th. But this did have a qualifier that Kane was going to leave in the summer. That whole Kane fiasco, everybody thought he was going to leave. There was not a chance he was going to stay, was there? It was like, oh, I really want to move and want to go to Manchester City and all. Well, he didn't. And then it took him ages for his form to click. So they could have been 13th for all we know. They were actually about 7th, I think, when they actually got rid of what's his chops? Nuno, when they got rid of him, and brought in the winner Conte. Who knows what would happen if they kept Nuno and didn't bring in the winner of Conte? I thought there was going to be a massive slump in form, though. 12th went with Wolves. They actually finished in 10th. Again, only 3 points in it, really. But I think they've slightly had a disappointment, considering at one point they looked like they may have even got into the Conference League. But they still have a very good squad. They still have a very good defensive record. And Bruno Lage is quite a good manager. So I do believe that in the future that they could carry on going around about this mid-table thing. It's just make sure they keep on recruiting right. And I do believe they'll do all right. 11th I went with Burnley. Now, this was a bit of a stupid call, but Burnley are normally a mid-table side. They do normally finish in that region. So finishing in 18th is a bit of a disappointment. It was a bit of a disappointment last season as well, I suppose. I thought, and I still have, I would say that it's slightly wavering now, the opinion that Sean Dyche is the greatest manager in the Premier League. Well, he was at the time, because of his wonders he did with such a small budget at Burnley. But yeah, I thought they'd finish in mid-table and they got relegated. Doesn't help with their new owners. They are awful. I don't know why the Premier League allowed this to happen. 10th went with Newcastle. Newcastle were in 11th, 2 points off it. And at this time, we didn't actually know about the Saudi ownership. It was still Steve Bruce. It was still Mike Ashley at the helm. So, and I actually said Joe Linton was going to revitalise his career, and you all thought that was an absolute joke. Well, they did. He did. Well, I think he's actually been the most improved player this season, I would argue. 9th went with Norwich. Better not talk about that one. I just thought, they've been in the Premier League before. They're going to improve because they now know the league and change tactics. No, got relegated again. 8th, I went with Arsenal. They were 5th in the end. They were 8th last season, I think. Yeah, they were 8th last season. They've done better this season. I based it again off pre-season, and I didn't really think Mikel Arteta had the sort of grasp of being a manager, and I thought he might have been sacked, but turns out not to be true. 7th, I went with West Ham. This is exactly right. Got this one right. I thought it would be a good season by West Ham standards, and they actually was. I think 7th, respectable, and they actually reached the Europa League final, which was more important, I think. Not finals, semi-finals, sorry. I thought they could establish themselves like a top team like Leicester. Well, Leicester aren't a top team at the moment, but West Ham certainly are. I think they will still keep on with European football as long as they keep on with their good players. Antonio's not been that good, and neither Sufel or Soucek, but they've got other players which has come in to fill that mould, like Bowen. 6th, we went with Brighton, a bit of an over-prediction, really. But they did finish in 9th in the end. It's been quite a good season. I shouldn't have gone that high, but I still think I've done quite all right with predicting them quite high up. I'd rather predict them higher than predict them lower. I would say that. 5th, Leicester. Well, Leicester finished in 8th, actually. That's caught me out of surprise, actually. I thought they finished 12th. They've snuck up on me like that. They've done much better this season than I thought the form has actually warranted, really, man. I thought they would retain the FA Cup. They haven't done that. The FA Cup has gone to Liverpool this season. And they are they do finish in the top 5 often. And I did think they'd do slightly better this season. Maybe not. 4th one with Chelsea, they finished in 3rd. Only 3 points in it, really, in the end. But it's always, throughout the whole season, it was like Chelsea going to be 3rd. Chelsea going to be 3rd. Chelsea going to be 3rd. There was a few nerves towards the end of the season that, that Tottenham might sort of go in it. But no, it was never going to happen. So I'm all right with that prediction. I think not much wrong there. Manchester City thought we were going to be 3rd. Thought they were going to be a bit complacent that season. Or this season, just mean. But no, they're not being. So I might have to reconsider my evaluation of Manchester City. And apologise for that quite poor prediction. Probably should have gone with them predicting winning the league. You'll find out who I have in a minute. So 2nd, I went with Liverpool. Absolutely correct with this one. They do need to clear out some of the dead wood. That is still an important thing. There are some players there which probably shouldn't still be there, but I think that he has a good first team and a couple of the players off the bench quite good as well. And the most stupid prediction of them all, I predicted Manchester United to win the league. Why did I predict Manchester United to win the league? They did poor last season. They're not. Well, actually, they didn't. They finished 2nd last season. Or was that the season before? But I was just like Sancho, Varane. I didn't even know that Ronaldo was going to come in at the time. And all the signings were pointing good transfer window, and they're going to go and win the league. Thank you very much for watching this very long video. Please subscribe if you're new around here. That'd be hugely appreciated. No video next week. I'm going to be revising. Just not going to. I've got too much to focus on at the moment. But goodbye for now.